Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I am the host, Andy Steele, and we took a little bit of a short break here from podcasting, a little bit of a vacation for a few weeks. It's time to recharge our batteries, unwind, and think about the road ahead. And of course, another 9/11 anniversary is coming. And we've got an excellent topic tonight. A lot of people have been wanting us to talk about this, so we're going to be dipping our toe into the water or just jumping right in and splashing it all over the people around us. I don't know, but we're going to be talking about, there you go, that thing right there, the Pentagon, September 11th. What actually happened there? And I don't have a lot of knowledge on this. I know a few things. I watched some of the videos from CIT, Craig Reinke, Aldo Marquis, those guys, the witnesses they interviewed. But the guys tonight that you're going to be listening to, it's going to be really their show this evening. I'm going to be handing it over to them, and I'm going to sit here and ask my questions as they come up, but they're going to be running it. This is going to be Mr. Craig McKee and Mr. Adam Ruff. So let me bring them up here on the screen. There's Craig, or there should be Craig. There's Adam Ruff. Guys, welcome to 9/11 Freefall.
Well, thanks, Andy.
Thanks.
Glad to be here, brother.
Yeah, I just want to warn you that it's not too late to back out. You know, there's still time to get out, to back out before it's, just joking.
I don't know what's going to happen to me. Maybe some people in the movement are going to call the cops or something. I will deal with it because we have not really covered this very often, and this sort of became a taboo topic for a while and scared some people off from getting into it. And look, it's not that I'm offering an opinion here. I'm just letting you guys come on and talk about some of this research. And I know that you guys didn't go out and do the witness interviews and all of that, but the original gentleman who did, they traveled out there, they brought their cameras, they found these people, they got these accounts. And considering this is September 11th, our entire country was set on a different path as a result of this event. If there's any kind of anomalies, we should be exploring it because we are a 9/11 truth movement. That is what we are here to do, is ask the very difficult questions here. And it's 24 years after the event. And I think that some of the stuff deserves to see the light of day. And I've always asked this question, and now we're in the age of AI, so it's kind of a moot point because they could just fake videos, right? But why not release all of the footage from the Pentagon? Why didn't they do that right from the very beginning? Instead we got like 3 stills from some kind of ground level camera or whatever. But at the very beginning, the Pentagon, the U.S. government could have released all of the footage. And if what happened there is exactly as they said happened, well, that would put all of these questions to rest. But here we got to be 24 years later, still raising them. So, Craig, I am going to sit back. I'll jump in with any questions that I have, but the show is yours. So go ahead and take it away, and just tell me when you want me to bring your PowerPoint up.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, I'll just give maybe a little bit of background on my involvement and Adam's involvement over the years. We've both been working on this subject, which has been, kind of considered to be controversial in the movement. And we've strongly opposed the official story contention that not only that Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, but also that any plane of that size did. And when you come right down to it, if it wasn't a 757, then the official story has been blown out of the water. And we've seen in terms of the World Trade Center evidence, it's blown out of the water in so many different ways. Same thing with Shanksville. And then there's so many different aspects of 9/11 that one could focus on, and none of the official story makes any sense, or none of it adds up. So I think the approach I've always taken, and I think that's why Adam and I kind of see things very similarly, is that if you can show the lies in the official story, it's great if you can figure out who actually exactly what happened, and that's a great thing to strive for. But if you can prove the official story is a lie, then you've accomplished a lot. And do you want to comment on that, Adam, and then we'll.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. And with the 9/11 truth movement, it's been for a long time solely focused on what happened in New York, and much of what took place in Shanksville and at the Pentagon was kind of left out of the question, left out of the discussion. And so I found out in roughly 2007, 2008 was when CIT did their investigation into the Pentagon, and I was completely blown away by what they uncovered. And I realized immediately how important the evidence they uncovered was, and how critical it was for the people who perpetrated 9/11 to suppress this information. And so I became like a bulldog, grabbed hold of a bone, and I started getting into the Pentagon really deep, and I did a lot of deep research, and Craig has done a lot of writing and a lot of investigation on the Pentagon as well. So we became kind of fast friends. And, ever since then, we've been slogging through what I would call a coordinated disinformation campaign. And we've been fighting a lot of resistance. And as Craig mentioned, the Pentagon is considered controversial, but I think that's a fake controversy. I don't think it's controversial at all. I think our evidence is really, really compelling.
And
the World Trade Center, let me just say, the World Trade Center is controversial. The idea that explosives brought down the towers is controversial.
So, exactly.
I mean, controversial and a controversial movement. Please go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those who maybe haven't followed this, Adam referred to CIT. Just tell people what CIT is so they know. This is this duo. Andy made, or I can't remember if it was Andy that made reference to them. In your introduction, these two guys from California that flew across the country, and they had some other people with them, but they basically interviewed a number of people who were in a position to see the plane that approached the Pentagon, and to place it in terms of its flight path. And they found, and you're going to see a couple of clips later on, of two Pentagon police officers, William Legacy and Chadwick Brooks, who described a flight path that is absolutely irreconcilable with the alleged damage that was supposed to have been caused by Flight 77. So this duo, they called themselves Citizen Investigation Team, and abbreviated to CIT. So when you hear us refer to CIT, this is the duo that did these interviews, and they did the interviews on camera, and at length, so you can really you can listen to the whole thing and get a very clear idea whether you find these people to be sincere and whether what they're saying makes sense.
Yeah, and if I could add something right here, the issue of the flight path at the Pentagon, there's the official flight path, and then the flight path that's described by the witnesses that Citizen Investigation Team interviewed. And that difference between those two flight paths is really a groundbreaking difference.
A game changer.
Incredibly important. I mean, if I was going to relate it to the OJ trial, if the glove doesn't fit, you have to quit. That's
right.
the kind of level of importance it has, because
Yeah.
if the official flight path is not true, then we have a government cover-up, and
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a whole ball of wax right there.
The government's
hence,
not only cover-up, but staging the event itself, staging the
right.
damage. Yeah.
Well, hence what 9/11 Truth is here to explore. Let's take a look at your slides here and get those up, see what you guys got. So something on the screen, that is a Pentagon, and you got some stuff circled. Talk about this.
Yeah, I felt that putting some arrows on some pictures would be, very credible looking, so I made sure to do that. So this is looking. There's an aerial shot showing the Pentagon looking back. If the plane were flying on the official flight path, it would be basically coming straight at us. And I kind of put that red arrow there just to give it's, don't hold me to the precise angle, but it's more or less the direction that the plane would have flown in. You'll see in the yellow oval shape, that's the Citgo gas station. And the reason why the Citgo gas station is important is not only were at least 3 of the witnesses located there, but it's really a good way to sort of mark the flight path, because the official flight path, as I said, is represented approximately by that red arrow. But all these witnesses, more than a dozen of them that CIT interviewed, described a flight path that's very different, and it's more on the other side. You see the white arrow, that's pointing at what was called the Navy Annex building, which has been torn down since, as has the Citgo gas station. So they really changed the landscape there. One wonders, whether there was an ulterior motive for that. But so anything. So where that white arrow is, that's on the north side of the Navy Annex. The red arrow is to the south, and the official path, the plane has to be entirely to the south of the Navy Annex and the road that goes alongside it, which is Columbia Pike. So that's an important, that just sort of sets the scene. And we're going to come back to the flight path. We're going to show some other stuff first, and then we're going to come back to the flight path. Are you good with just going ahead, Adam? And
yeah, go right ahead.
I mean, we can make more comments, I think, once we've given people a bit more of the meat to it.
I'll just say that the Citgo circled in yellow. So the north is to your right as you're looking at the photo, and the south is to the left. And the official flight path, which is marked with the red arrow, the plane has to be on that flight path in order to do the damage to some light poles and to the inside of the Pentagon. If it's not on that flight path, then all that damage cannot be accounted for.
Yeah, and we've got a slide that shows the location of the light poles and everything, so that'll really demonstrate that. So, but now, before we get further into that aspect of it, this is just a kind of a wide shot of the damage. You can see this is a section of the Pentagon collapsed about 40 minutes or 30 minutes, somewhere around there, after the initial event. So we'll see some photos that show that the damage looked a lot less and before this section fell down. You can note the lawn and how little debris and absence of damage entirely that you see in this picture. There is debris that we'll show you on other slides. So it's not all pristine, but this just kind of sets the scene. And now this is before that section came down. So you can see, if you see that little bit of flame inside the building, that is right above that is where the hole goes to the second floor. Other than that little section, it's all on the first floor. And you can see we've got a composite photo that we're going to show you in a second. The reason why we have to rely on a composite photo is that they were shooting foam at the building practically the whole day. So to get a clear view of the damage all at once was almost impossible, and one can't help but wonder if that was not done deliberately to obscure the lack of damage. So now this is just a graphic that just kind of gives you an idea, kind of what we'd be talking about. This is what the building. Again, this is taken from that composite image, and it shows that this is what we're supposed to believe, is that this would hit this building and disappear into a hole nowhere near large enough.
If I could point out also, if you follow the red line along the tail section, you'll see it would have struck some windows just above the hole.
Yeah.
And those windows are still intact. So we have some very serious questions about how a plane moving at over 500 miles an hour would not even break a window.
Well, and as a matter of fact, our very next slide shows exactly what you just mentioned. This is, again, a composite image, so you can see that the part of the wall on the left-hand side is taken from a different photograph than the rest. But this is a really, really useful image, that it shows the opening in the building. And it's important to note that each of those windows, like from the center of one window to the center of the next window, is 10 feet. So you can do a pretty good job of estimating the size of the opening just by counting the windows. So you're looking at 80 to 90 feet of opening, but even within the 80 to 90 feet, you've got columns that are at least partly intact, still hanging there. They may be severed at the bottom, but they're still up.
And especially the column that's right in the middle of the hole on the second floor there. You can see that is still hanging down directly where the fuselage would have gone through.
Yeah. And there are photos that show, if you look more from the side, that it seems to be kind of angled inward, but nevertheless, I mean, angled inward. I mean, a plane going that speed with that kind of momentum is not is going to do more than bend a column like that. So that just gives you an idea of, and the wingspan of a 757 is 125 feet. So this opening is way too small to accommodate the plane. Plus, with the plane coming in on an angle, it would have needed, as Massimo Mazzucco shows in his documentary on 9/11, it would have needed an opening more like 160 feet wide to fit the wings. And of course, the claim is sometimes made that the wings were folded in and pulled into the opening. To me, I find that to be just almost laughable, but the same thing with the tail section. But so there's no big pieces of wings outside as you would expect with an opening this small.
Can I ask a question really quick, Craig? Because you may have this in your slideshow coming up, but I was looking at your picture of the airplane and I was wondering about that. What is that, like the tail fin or whatever it's called? The tail section sticking up.
Yeah.
Now, you might have this in the slideshow, but the original hole seemed pretty darn small before the section collapsed when the airplane went in. What did they say happened with this tail section? What did that damage in this initial impact?
Well, it didn't. According to those who would push the 757 impact, it didn't damage anything. It got sort of bent, along with the wings, kind of like folded in around the fuselage and pulled into the building. So the claim would be made that the entire tail section is inside the building, which I find to be like incredible that this is even.
Well, where did they find the wings in the tail section?
Well, we have, as far as we know, they did. We have no proof that they found any of those things.
So they don't have a acknowledgement or any kind of plan, like a floor map of like the wing was found here, the tail section was found here, some kind of graphic or something.
Well, there certainly are graphics that show the damage path or the alleged damage path, and there's ones that talk about where different things were found, like items that allegedly belonging to passengers. I don't know, Adam. Do you have any thoughts on whether there were claims of pieces of the wings inside?
There were no claims made like that. The only thing I've heard is that some people propose that the wings, uh, as the impact happened, the wings basically folded up and went inside. And I assume they're trying to suggest the same thing about the tail. However,
Yeah,
if you keep in mind as a plane is coming in at the moment of impact, what's going to happen? The wings aren't going to fold backwards. They're going to be thrown forwards. So the whole idea that the wings folded backwards and the tail folded down and everything went neatly in that small hole is just ludicrous. And they found very little of 757 inside. And what they did find, we have serious questions about the authenticity of that evidence. So the answer is no, they didn't find anything. And the tail section, to your question, Andy, the tail section apparently didn't do any damage because those windows right where it would have hit did not break.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, please continue. I just wanted to address that.
Sure. No. Yeah. This is an image. This is again from a distance. I put this in kind of as an establishing shot because we're going to show another slide that shows the lack of damage to the foundation in a second. But this one, I didn't. I do. There is a sort of a famous picture, I guess, that shows it. But halfway up that opening where you can see the different floors, there's a stool with an open book sitting on the stool, and this is. I don't know how a 757 at 500 miles per hour hits that part of the building and doesn't knock a book off a stool. That's another one of my favorites. I didn't get it into this series of photos, but well, it is there if you kind of squint and look closely in that middle floor. But the reason I showed that slide is because this is on the inside of that opening, kind of looking back out again, and you can see the concrete foundation. This is on the first floor, right where the plane is supposed to have entered. And the idea that a 757 would plow into the first floor of this building and not do more damage than that, right, to me is just crazy. I mean, that's just, there's not even, I mean, you could do more damage with a hammer than what you see in that picture.
Yeah, and we're talking about a 70-ton aircraft, and they allege, the official story alleges that it came in at 530 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And you'll see later on in the presentation how incredible that speed and impact would really be.
Yeah, that's right. We have something, kind of cool coming. So that thing with the foundation to me is, we don't hear this talked about a lot, but it strikes me. Now, this is the C-ring hole, and we should make an important point here about the construction of the Pentagon. The exterior wall, which is the E-ring, on the first two floors, there is no more exterior wall. Like the E-ring, then the second ring is the D ring, and then the third one is the C ring. This is the alleged exit hole of the plane in the C ring wall.
Yeah, so let me explain here for a second, Craig.
Yeah.
So the Pentagon has concentric pentagons inside each other. So you've got the E ring, the D ring, and then the C ring inside of that. So this is the inner wall of the C ring, which would be the third ring in. Go ahead.
Yeah, with the inner wall, it's the exterior view. You're looking from outside between the two rings. Yeah. But the key thing is that on the first two floors, the rings are all kind of one building. Like if you look from above, they look like they're separate ones, but from the second floor down, it's like you know what I mean? There's no exterior walls dividing up the rings for those bottom two floors. And the reason that's important is because this is supposed to be the exit hole made by the fuselage or some other piece. It's a awfully conveniently roundish looking hole. But what I
In
think is
fact,
the
Craig,
smoking gun of the Pentagon.
If I can point out, military experts have described this as a hole that would be created by an explosive.
Yeah,
and if you notice, the debris in the foreground there, that's what they claim was left of the plane. But go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. So what I think is the smoking gun is the fact that the plane has two Rolls-Royce engines weighing something in the neighborhood of 8,000 pounds, and the core is made of titanium, which is virtually indestructible. So you would have these two massive engines hurtling at 500 miles an hour into a brick wall. There is no, in my estimation, there is nothing inside of that office building that could have stopped those two engines from plowing right out of the sea ring. And I don't know how long they would have continued, but these were essentially, as again in Mizuko's film, one of the people he interviewed referred to it as being like the equivalent of a missile in terms of the destructive power of that, something weighing that much going at that speed.
Yeah.
There's nothing inside the building. There would have been offices, there would have been, interior walls, filing cabinets, desks, but there's nothing that could stop an 8,000 pound engine going at that speed.
Right.
Yeah. And there's an example of the engine.
And it's also important to point out, Craig, that titanium won't melt either, because if it would melt in flame, then the engine itself wouldn't last very long.
Yeah.
The titanium is incredibly strong and incredibly resistant to heat.
Right. And you see, anytime you see a plane crash where there's the wreckage of the plane is all over the place, you always find the engines. They may be mangled, they may be, somewhat crushed or bent or whatever, but they don't just fall apart. They don't just break into little pieces. There's always something there that looks like that it used to be an engine.
Well, except at the Pentagon on 9/11.
Well, yeah.
Because we don't have engines at the Pentagon, and that remains one of the biggest questions about the official story.
Well, let me just highlight that for a second, because you got this picture where you got a man there. So, you assume he's an average sized man. He's not a little man. And this is the size of the engine there. And sometimes I have trouble trying to imagine sizes of things and have that kind of, like depth imagination and stuff like that. But this is a good comparison here. So are you telling me that they at no point ever pulled out either a mangled or perfectly intact engine and said, here's the engine, folks, this is it, and had it laid out on the lawn and took it away? This never happened?
That's correct.
They did have, I will say there is a part that is purported to be part of one of the engines that's like a show. It shows the rotor or whatever. I'm not good with the term.
And it's roughly this big.
Yeah,
it's according to the official story, it came from the internals of the engine here at some point. It's one of the fans deeper into the engine.
Yeah.
But no, as far as a big lump that would comprise most of the engine itself, no, nothing like that was found inside the Pentagon.
No. Well, something like this would take equipment to pull it out of the building. I mean, this is gigantic. So, I mean, that would be a spectacle taking it out if people are witnessing it and stuff like that. It's hard for me to believe that something like that could be completely consumed in the wreckage. But please continue.
I don't think it could. I mean, the thing we have to keep in mind here is that the crime scene that was completely under the control of the U.S. military. I mean, particularly we're talking about the inside of the building. I mean, literally you could do anything you want in there. I mean, they could have, we've got photographs of the interior damage. Who knows whether that was prepared in advance, or it could have been produced like created like a Hollywood set might be. It's interesting that inside the building, that's where we're told everything was, the wings and the engines and the tail section. But outside the building, we get a couple of scraps. We get nothing that's too large for one or two people to just carry it. And I don't want to tip, but we're going to get to slides that'll sort of illustrate that point in a second. But let me just now. Here we are outside the building. There were these guys in dress pants and white shirts and ties, photographed walking around, carrying pieces of alleged fuselage. Now, were they moving them? Were they placing them? Were they picking them up? I mean, no matter which of those three it is, it's wrong. I mean, if they were collecting them, I mean, it's a crime scene. There should be an investigation of this, and some guy in a white shirt shouldn't be lugging them off on 9/11.
This is before any official investigators could even be at the crime scene.
So how soon after the crash? How soon after the crash are these guys out there picking up pieces?
This is within, I believe, an hour and a half.
And these guys' first priority is to pick up little pieces off the lawn?
Yeah, what are they doing? There's still rescue efforts going on. I don't know exactly when this photo was taken.
Yeah, I'm not sure either exactly. Yeah.
But the firefight was still going on. I know that.
Well, I mean, there's no real reason for them to be picking anything up, I wouldn't think.
And the point is, who are they? What are they doing? And why are they interfering with an investigation that hasn't even had a chance to happen yet?
Right. So now, this is we're just giving you an image of what the plane would have looked like back in 2001. American Airlines. You can see the fuselage is silver. It looks kind of blue in this picture, but it's actually the reflection. It's silver on the top. And you can see, now take note, because Adam's going to talk about this in a second, but take note of the American on the side of the plane. And you'll see in a second why that's important to take note of. Yeah. Now, here, before I hand it over to Adam to explain his point, I'm just going to point out, there you can see there's a guy that's got an FBI jacket on. He's clearly walking around with a piece of aluminum or whatever it is in his hand. Yeah. So, there's one, in the background.
Let me talk about this.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
If you look at the piece in his hand, you see red lettering with surrounded by a white border. And then in the background, you can see the letter C almost fully. You can see the entire letter C. Well, that comes from the logo that's at the front part of the plane, and that logo is the only place where you're going to find red lettering surrounded by a white border on that fuselage, and that the entire section with lettering occupies about 3% of the fuselage area. So the rest of the fuselage is either silver or gray or doesn't have that lettering. But go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And there's another shot that shows two different pieces. One of them is that one with the C. that you saw in the other picture, and then there's another one behind it. And I think we've got another one in the foreground there that clearly shows part of a letter. And tell me if I'm summing this up correctly, Adam, but the point is, this plane allegedly crashes into the building. There's just a few pieces of, supposed fuselage that end up visible, so that most people looking at that will go, "Oh my God, it's a piece of the plane," and they're not even going to think, "Well, was there a plane?" They're just going to assume. But the what makes it immediately twig in people's minds that, oh, that's part of that plane, is the lettering, as Adam points out. So but the odds that every piece of fuselage that we can see is either light enough that you could pick it up and walk around with it, or that it just happens to have part of one of the letters on it to make it identifiable as American Airlines. The odds against that, as Adam pointed out, are extreme.
Yeah, it's astronomical, actually. So this falls into the category of what I call an orgy of evidence. In other words, for investigators, this is too good to be true. It's like the passports that mysteriously passed through the fuselage and landed on the street in New York. It's like the passport that was found in Shanksville.
Yeah,
it's completely ridiculously impossible, because if the lettering only occupies 3% of the fuselage area, and that's being generous, by the way, then you've got a 1 in 33% chance. 1 in 33 chance that any piece of fuselage will have lettering on it. But if you get to the point where virtually all the pieces, the recognizable pieces of fuselage, have lettering on them, then it becomes astronomical as far as the odds. So if you had 3 major pieces of fuselage and all 3 pieces had this lettering on it, it would be approximately 1 in 33,000% chance of that actually happening randomly, because most of the fuselage doesn't have lettering. So this really, really, like the passports in New York, this really, really smacks of planted evidence.
Absolutely. And now here's an image that I put in there just to show that there was an area near this is the helipad in the foreground, and you can see the damage to the wall behind. So there's lots of what you could call debris lying around, but and some have sort of touted this as like, well, that's more, it's not a pristine lawn, it's look at all the debris. Well, I think the point is not, is there debris? The point is, did the debris come from a plane? And nothing that I have seen, except for these few examples of the fuselage that we talked about, and maybe that rotor thing that is allegedly from one of the engines. There's very little, and there's stuff inside, that's photographed inside the building and in the C-ring, like small, items that are supposedly part of the plane. But as was pointed out, this is I think it's about 90 ton, but I could be overestimating there the size of the plane. So there should be 90 tons of metal. There should be, to cart away, and we haven't seen but a fraction of that.
And like you said, Andy, where was the crane brought in to lift this 7,000 pound or 8,000 pound chunk of engine out of the Pentagon? It never happened.
Yeah.
What are they saying happened
to those engines?
What are they saying happened to most of the planes? So they're bringing out these pieces with some pieces of letter on them and stuff, but most of this plane is gone. Are they saying it just vaporized from heat, or that it burned up and melted from the fire inside?
Andy, I kid you not. The official account alleges that it vaporized.
Will that be because of heat, or just from an impact and it just went poof? Or
that's what they're saying.
But people are walking around and picking up pieces with their bare hands.
Right.
Something was so hot it just vaporized the plane, but then they just pick it up like within the hour. And okay, please continue.
I'm not sure if there are those who are not necessarily part of the government who are advocating for a 757 impact. They're not necessarily saying that it vaporized. Just to be
Right.
clear, some of them are saying, well, no, it all got pulled into the building, and so it's inside the building. And I guess the argument then would be, well, we don't really know how they disposed. Like, once it's out of public view, we have really no way of knowing how it was disposed of. So I know that one.
Let me say this, Craig. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
But there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of parts inside a plane that have serial numbers. And so do we have any serial numbers that correlate to Flight 77 found in the wreckage and presented at trial, at the Moussaoui trial? No, we don't.
No, that was a point that David Ray Griffin made very clear in some of his earlier books, that there are no, they call them time-stamped parts, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because they have to replace them every so many thousand flight miles. So this is looking, and I throw this into here, and I'm being generous in looking for one that has the most debris in it. My theory, some of that, you can see some of that is clearly from trees. There are bits of trees that are in that area. I think there are things that were blown out of the office building, and I think some of the debris is come from inside the building. And you can look, and there's a window right in the center beside the fire truck, where you can see the whole frame of the window is kind of mangled. So it's certainly, and there are other pictures. I don't think I've got one. I'm not sure if I got one that shows it. Maybe that wide shot I could have pointed out. There's fire coming out of the building, the windows, like 200 feet away from the hole, right above the heliport. So it certainly suggests there was stuff going on inside that building that caused damage that had nothing to do with the plane impact. Explosives and whatnot. So now I brought this back.
Not the remains of a plane.
Exactly. So I brought this slide back. You remember this one from the beginning, and the reason I did was just to refresh everybody's memory, because we're getting very close to showing you a video clip. Once again, the red arrow is because the next slide is going to be basically the reverse. It's going to be as if you were sort of above that Navy Annex building with the white arrow, looking back the other way at the Pentagon. And it's important. This is important as far as the flight path is concerned. Now this, and I think this originally is a CIT image that I've pinched. You can see in this, you can see the Citgo gas station in the foreground. So it's as if you're floating above the Navy Annex building. That red line is the official flight path, and there's virtually no deviation that you can have from that official path if you want to account for all the damage. And the little yellow markers there are the 5 light poles. And so you can see that you couldn't be much off that precise path. If you were, you wouldn't hit all the poles. So the reason that's important is because the witnesses, and we're going to show you 2 of them quickly, they described a flight path that didn't line up with the light poles at all. And so if what those people are saying is true, then the light pole thing had to have been staged. So now this is an overhead, and I think this is also a CIT image. The green line is the official path in this image, and the yellow lines are the paths that the different interview subjects described. So you can see there's a similarity to many of them, including the fact that they all describe the plane banking to the right, or almost all of them describe that, which is, it's hard to imagine that 12 or 13 or more people who didn't, in many cases, most cases, didn't even know each other, weren't even in the same location, ended up describing the path so similarly. And you can see right in the center of this image where it says vantage number 4, that's the gas station. So you can see why the gas station is important.
Critical vantage point, because if the flight path is north of the sit-go gas station, which is vantage number 4 here, then the official story cannot be true. And if the flight path is south along the green line, then the official story is correct. But you're about to see a couple witnesses that were at vantage point number 4.
Yeah, actually, Andy, this would be a good spot to play the first clip, the William Legacy one.
All right, here we go. William Legacy.
Where did you see the plane coming from exactly? What direction? Did you see it approaching?
Well, I saw it, like I said, if you look here where Arlington Cemetery is, right about where those transformers are,
yeah,
that's the first place I saw it. It cleared all these lampposts, it cleared all the light posts.
So it was heading towards you, coming from Arlington Cemetery, over there?
No. It was heading from left to right. It came from that 2 area.
So you're saying it came from to the north side of the Navy annex, even?
Yes. Now,
okay.
What it did before those transformers, I don't know, because that's the first place I really saw it, was right there. But it was not coming towards me. It was coming from left to right, or from east, or from west to east.
That stone fence that we just zoomed in on over there is the fence to the Arlington National Cemetery. Yes. And as far as you could tell, the fuselage was over that.
Yeah, best guess estimate, that's about where the fuselage was.
And how high was it at that time?
About 150 feet AGL.
All right, now how sure are you that the plane was to the north, coming from the north side of the Navy Annex? You're saying it was pretty much between the Navy Annex and Arlington Cemetery? Yeah. How certain are you of that?
100%. Bet my life on it. 100%. Bet my life on it.
Okay, I forgot to get you to draw where you saw the flight path coming, Sergeant Legacy.
From out of here.
Okay, yeah, make that nice and thick for me.
I don't know. How well are police officers trained to observe and report, though?
Well, he seemed to know what he saw. He seemed to be pretty comfortable describing it. Yeah, that is. I think he would be in a court case. I think he would be considered an expert witness.
Well, and furthermore, Craig, Legacy was standing on the north side of the Citgo gas station,
right,
and he was blocked by the canopy and by the gas station structure itself from even seeing the south path.
Yeah, so that's a very important point. Yeah,
a flight path that is absolutely 100% opposed to the official path. He's describing a north of Citgo flight path.
Yeah, even if it had gone completely like right over his head, it still would have been a north path. But when he points towards the cemetery is north of the Navy Annex. So if it's north of the Navy Annex, it didn't do any of the damage. This is the key point. This is why the flight path matters so much, because it has to be on that, what you're looking at on your screen right now. If it's not on that green line, then it didn't knock the light poles down and it didn't make the damage in the building. It didn't hit the generator trailer in front of the Pentagon. If any of those yellow paths are correct, then all that damage had to have been staged.
That's right. It's if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit moment. So if Legacy is correct, and he said he bet his life on it, if Legacy is correct that the flight path was north of Citgo, then the damage must have been staged. There is no alternative.
Well,
and
who
now
asked
we have
them other than CIT? Other than the CIT guys, who from the government, when they're investigating this, have come up and asked him about his flight path?
Well, they did interviews with a lot of people. In fact, some of the people that CIT interviewed were people that they found out about them through, I guess, the Library of Congress. Is that right, Adam?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of interviews. So they, to some degree, they knew some of where these people were going to be coming from. But I don't know that the flight path necessarily is always going to be part of those interviews, because they're not going to ask them about the flight path necessarily.
That's right, because those interviews were not specific, and they were just asking generalized questions without any context. So once CIT got on the scene and started asking all these witnesses specific questions about the flight path, that's the only place you're going to find these interviews discussing that specific issue.
So one thing Legacy did say.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm just going to say, sorry to interrupt you. Legacy, even in the early interviews, specifically mentions seeing the starboard side of the plane, and that's the starboard side. That reinforces him looking at it from to the rest of us, I guess, to be the right side of the plane. So it means it was on the north path. He would not have seen the starboard side if it was on the official path, the south path. So now, why don't we, before we go too much further, why don't we watch the other clip, which is another Pentagon cop who was at the gas station, a different part of the gas station, and the two of them didn't even know about the other one being there. They didn't even compare notes until CIT ended up. We're not going to see this part, but CIT ended up interviewing them together, where they talked about that they hadn't spoken to each other at all. So this is Chadwick Brooks, who is another Pentagon cop. So Andy, if you want to throw that one up.
What side of the station did you see the plane fly over?
Okay, actually, from the front of the station. Exactly where we were at earlier, where the yellow Jersey barrier.
Okay, was it more on the, when we're facing the station, more on the north side or to the left?
No, it was more to the left.
More to the left, okay. And was the plane, the entire plane to the left of the station, or maybe portion of it over the canopy of the station?
No, it was more towards the left.
It was the entire plane was to the left station, the wing and everything.
Correct. During this point right here, we were able to see everything.
Right.
When that plane came descending across here.
Okay, so it came from up over here.
Correct. See where the trees are at?
Yeah.
Where the trees are at?
And it was descending.
Correct. It was descending. By then, it had already been descending.
Okay,
it was basically doing a straight line. Just a straight line towards the Pentagon. By then, it was actually en route, and it was a straight line.
This is an approximate reconstruction of the event when considering Brooks's statements and observations of the plane on the north side. Here is what it would have looked like for him with the plane on the official southern approach. Once again, this would place him on the complete opposite side of the aircraft from his crucial perspective, a ridiculous and virtually impossible mistake for anyone to make, let alone a federal officer who is professionally trained to observe and report. Of course, all the other witnesses in this area prove that he was not mistaken about this simple detail.
Yeah, and if I can point out, both Legacy and Brooks are highly credible, and you can tell they're being as forthright as they can be about what they saw. But it can't be overemphasized that 11 other witnesses corroborated what they said and reinforced it 11 more times. The chance that all of those witnesses were mistaken about such a critical detail, I think it's ridiculous.
Well, let me ask here really quick. Other than people in the truth movement that argue over the Pentagon seemingly for a career now, has anybody from the government ever addressed these different flight path narratives? If they have, what has been their answer to this?
Their answer has been the stone wall of silence. That's what their answer has been all along, in regard to all of these witnesses. And believe me, the government and the investigators that investigated this crime, they know what the implications are of these witnesses. They know that it implies that the crime scene was staged at the Pentagon, and they know what that means. That means 9/11 was definitely an inside job, and people that are in control of the crime scene, which is the Pentagon, the most secured building in the world. So the people that control the grounds at the Pentagon know the implications here. So
just to establish though, because NIST will have a list of questions and they answer them, and we know how much stonewalling NIST does, and that they don't even bother to correct their materials when we send in a request for correction and all of this. But at least they have they make an attempt, right? And their answers aren't very good, but they ask the questions themselves and they provide answers. So there is nothing from the U.S. government that says multiple witnesses reported seeing a different flight path of these airplanes. Here is our answer. There's nothing like this that exists, to your knowledge.
They don't even want to address the question, Andy, because this exact question of the flight path is the critical detail that breaks the whole case. So they would like nothing better than for this to just all disappear and never talk about it again.
Yeah. There is the official report for where the Pentagon's concerned is the Pentagon Building Performance Report, which was done by the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASE. Now it isn't quite as well known as the NIST reports are, and there hasn't been quite as much, well, anywhere near as much examination of it. So I'm not aware that they have any frequently asked questions about it or anything. It does say in that report that the plane, they argue that the plane would have lost structural integrity halfway between the E-ring and the C-ring. So basically the thing would have been ripped to shreds long before it got to the C-ring, which makes it even harder to figure why it would make such a nice round hole in the C-ring. But I also want to mention, when you're talking about the government's position, one thing that a lot of people forget is that the National Transportation Safety Board produced an animation of the flight path based on the flight data recorder of Flight 77, alleged flight data recorder. And it showed the plane on the north path, exactly as these witnesses said. So the government's own evidence shows the plane north of the Citgo gas station and too high to hit the Pentagon.
That's right.
Now, I know there, and this is too difficult to get into in any depth right now, but I know there are those in the truth movement that would want us to believe that there was just some missing data at the end of this flight data recorder the file, and that once you add that missing section, that everything aligns with the official story. But what I would say to that, without being able to get into the details in this, is I would say, well, how come the government hasn't corrected it then? The government's own animation disproves the government's story. If they made a mistake with this animation, why haven't they corrected it? They have not. So to me, that's another kind of smoking gun.
It's a smoking gun. And, if I can add just a little point about, imagine yourself from the point of view of the perpetrator of this crime. Okay. Can you imagine the millions of details you would have to get exactly right in order to pull this off? if you were planning this. So, I think it's a mistake for people to assume that they didn't make a lot of mistakes. And I think that what Craig described is one of those mistakes where they just can't get everything right. When you're lying, there's just traps that happen. You get yourself backed into corners when you're lying. And I think that's what happened here is they've got so much overlapping evidence that they are lying that the best they can do is come up with the most plausible sounding narrative. And I think that's what they tried to do with the World Trade Center as well.
Well, let me just ask a quick question. So we're talking about the Citgo gas station and stuff. Most gas stations, I think even back in 2001, had cameras and things like this. Has anybody ever been able to get their hands on the Citgo gas station footage and get an idea of what's going on here from there? Have they been able to look at that?
Yeah. Well, we have some really grainy, terrible video from the Citgo. We have a little bit of grainy, terrible video from a hotel that was nearby. But there were over 80 cameras that captured this event, and very few of those have been released to us. But Craig,
and the Citgo thing, it doesn't show, like, you see what looks like a flash, and the claim has been made that that's the reflection of the explosion in the canopy. That's another whole subject. I think that's completely bogus. But I mean, there are all kinds of footage was confiscated within minutes of the event in the surrounding areas. So that's part of the issue is but
and think about the demeanor. I just want to say think about the demeanor. Because Andy, you made a point earlier about why not just show all this stuff? Well, think about the demeanor of hiding all of those videos. What does that say about the people that are hiding those videos? Okay, why would you hide the videos of this? Why wouldn't you show if the videos show what the officials claim it shows, which is a 757 coming in and slamming into the side of the Pentagon? Why not show these videos? There's surveillance cameras all along the wall of the Pentagon and all around the grounds. So why not show the videos? Why are they all hidden?
Well, some people will say, oh, you don't want to see all those people dying as the airplane crashes into the building. Well, we saw ad nauseum the airplanes hitting the Twin Towers, right? So, we've already gone there. It's history. You've got a lot of questions, so satisfy people's curiosity. Now, years ago, somebody said to me, well, the U.S. government, now keep in mind, this guy is no authority. He's just speculating like me, but he says that perhaps there's something about our defenses of the Pentagon that they don't want us to see, something that defends that building that went off or something that they don't want us to see. Well, obviously it didn't work then if the official story is correct, right? So, I mean, I would like to think that if that's the case, they scrapped it and moved on to something else. But, we're 24 years after the event took place. I would imagine that there's been some kind of upgrade in military defenses and anything that's protecting this building. What's the big deal with just releasing all of the footage and addressing this controversy that continues to linger? Score a point for government transparency, which is what people have been asking for. Michael Moore made this point many, many years ago, and it still holds true.
Well, I would just say, absolutely. But we know the reason that they don't do that. And that is because if they showed us actual footage, it wouldn't support their story. So we know why they're not doing it. And I think they just think that they don't really need to even explain that because there's just a small group of us that are demanding that. And most of the world doesn't even know about this. So, they just, as Adam said, they're just stonewalling. But their own evidence, this is what people don't realize, is it's the government's own evidence that indicts their their claims.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to have some theory that we can speculate about what it's they have proven their own account wrong. And maybe let me just see what the next okay. Now I want to introduce you quickly to, and this honestly, this part of the thing could be its own show. But Lloyd England is the taxi driver who is important to the story because his cab was supposed to have been impaled by the first light pole hit, which was allegedly hit by the right wing of the plane. And you'll get an idea of that from slide coming up. But this just shows the damage to his windshield. And I'll go to the next one. This is a wider shot that shows that's the pole that England says impaled his taxi. And he says a silent stranger in a van stopped, got out, didn't say a word, and helped Lloyd, who was 68 at the time, helped Lloyd to pull this pole out of his taxi. The pole weighed 247 pounds. And the number of things, and we've got a couple of big ones for you in a moment, but there are a couple of reasons why this is absolutely absurd. Not the least of which is the idea that, first of all, why would you even attempt, just minutes after this has happened, like, why would your first thought be, gee, let's get that pole out of there? But anyway, that's the cab. And now this is an aerial shot again that you see those green planes that represents the approximate, the official path. You can see the taxi indicated there with an arrow at the top, or approximate location where it's supposed to be. The yellow arrow points to the pole that Lloyd unequivocally says was the one that hit his cab. Other people have tried to say, oh no, it was the second light pole, because that kind of makes it more plausible that it could happen. But in fact, Lloyd is very, very clear, and he says it over and over and over again. So here's the problem with the physics of that. The right wing is somewhat swept back. It's not perpendicular to the plane. It's swept back. How does it hit that pole and knock it to the left of the plane up the road to hit the taxi?
And not only that, Craig, but how does it manage to knock the pole to the left towards the taxi and also manage to avoid the fuselage, which would be in the way?
Exactly.
At that point.
Above or below. It would have to go above it or below it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This pole has to do this magic dance. It has to go somehow under the plane, bounce up, and then spear his cab somehow and be thrown to the left when it should be thrown virtually to the right or across the road is the way it should have gone.
Yes. Now this is a slide that you put together, Adam, for one of your presentations that I've used here. And why don't you explain what this shows?
Sure. These are the 5 light poles, and these were supposedly downed by the plane as it came in. So you see light pole number 1 and number 3 would have been struck by the right wing, and 2, 4, and 5 would have been hit by the left wing. And so what you see is in yellow is the direction that the plane, considering the sweep of the wings, should have thrown the pole. But in each case, you see the red line indicates the way the pole actually went. So in the case of light pole number 1, it should have been thrown across the road toward the Pentagon. But instead, the official story claims it went to the left towards Lloyd England's cab, somehow going under the fuselage and bouncing up or something. and supposedly speared his windshield with that light pole. And then you can see most dramatically in pole number 2, where it should have been thrown towards the taxi cab, it actually came to rest almost backwards. So it came to rest on.
That's the one on the bank, right? Like it's on
on the bank.
Yeah.
There's a sloped embankment right there, and the pole just fell over nicely right near its base, facing the wrong direction. So
how low to the ground is the airplane, and where is it hitting these poles? Top portion or lower portion?
Well, it would had to have hit near the tops of the poles, at least for pole number 1 and 2.
At least 20 feet up.
Yeah. So you also notice pole number 5. So pole number 5 should have been thrown in the same direction as towards the heliport, but it came to rest very close to its base, just sort of fell over to the right, and that totally contradicts the direction it would have actually been thrown. So every single pole is dubious. Its final resting place was dubious, to say the least.
My feeling is that all these 5 light poles were down before the event. They're already down. They're already sitting there. And we're going to show you, in terms of the Lloyd England pole, you say, well, it's right in the middle of the road. How could that be lying there? Well, we're going to give you a reason for that in a second. But like people say, well, how people would have noticed these poles if they were already down. But when you think about it, I mean, why would you notice? You're driving down the highway and you see a light pole on the median or something lying down. You're not going to assume that something's being staged. You're just going to ignore it, I think. So now this is important because this is a view of Lloyd England's cab is in behind the white car, as you can see. That pole is the pole, again, that we showed you in the other image that is the one that Lloyd says he pulled out of his taxi cab. Now, I hope you can see this, but see the 2 arrows at the bottom? There's a white scratch that goes all the way across the road, and it just happens to end right at the corner of the pole where it's lying on the road. And so what that tells me is that this pole was probably lying on the side of the road and was dragged into the middle of the road, because that scratch just matches perfectly. Do you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, I think it is glaring, obvious evidence of the crime scene being staged. There's no other explanation for it, really.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into a couple of interesting things here. This is the back seat of the cab. That's the hole supposedly made by this 250-pound pole being hit by a plane at 530 miles per hour, impaling the cab, and then doing that to the back seat. That's not a lot of damage. A little bit of duct tape and you're back in business, I think.
It looks like my high school buddy's first car. That's the kind of condition it was in when he got it. It wasn't hit by a light pole.
And let me reemphasize, the plane is supposedly coming in at 530 miles per hour. Lloyd is coming 40 to 50 miles per hour in the opposite direction. So, we're talking about well over 500 mile per hour impact of a 240-pound javelin, basically, coming at Lloyd's car. So for that to be the result of that javelin traveling at that speed, I find that to be one of the most ridiculous parts of the official story.
Yes, and we've got something that addresses that very point coming up. And I would point out, and I've got, now this is a photograph, the one on the left The one on the right is the same one that you just saw. The one on the left was taken, I think, by Lloyd England's wife the day after 9/11. And you can see that the front seat is bent back. It's not ripped. It's not, broken in half. It's bent back at the corner. And the hole that you see on the right is behind that seat. So to me, it makes me think of the magic bullet theory of JFK, except it's a magic pole theory. How does the pole bend the passenger seat back at the top right as we're looking at it, and then suddenly take a sharp turn downwards to make a little tear in the upholstery? To me, it's ridiculous. To think this.
There's all sorts of issues with Lloyd England's taxi cab and the evidence of it.
Yeah,
but we can get into that another time, I think.
Now this might be a good time to bring in our final video clip, because this is we're talking about the damage is anomalous. Which it certainly is.
Up a little bit, Craig.
Yeah. You go ahead.
So, bear in mind that the official claim is that the poles were knocked down by an aircraft coming in at over 500 miles per hour, and we know that the poles were found just toppled over gently right near their base, and then this damage to this taxi cab, which is nothing more than a broken front window and this little hole in this bent back seat, were the result of a javelin being launched by an aircraft going over 500 miles per hour. So I thought it would be appropriate for people to see for themselves with their own eyes what a 500 mile per hour impact actually looks like, and what the damage is from an impact like that. So if you could play the rocket sled video.
Right, here we go.
This is from Mythbusters, right? Yeah.
And a strange, eerie silence settles on the scene. The proverbial calm before the storm.
This is rocket-powered Super Plow versus front-engine vehicle going at 500 miles an hour in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Wow!
That went so much faster than I thought it was going to.
Oh, that was great! It was like here 1 second and then gone.
Gone in a sixth of a second. The rockets fire, and 75,000 pounds of thrust throw the Super Plow along the track at a spectacular 550 miles per hour. And when the dust and shrapnel settle, the team discovers a spectacular result.
We split it! I cannot believe we split the car in half! Look at it, it went right down the tape line. We have two perfect halves of the car. It actually split the engine in half.
Yeah, check it out.
Now, this is what we couldn't do in Wisconsin, was split the engine block.
Well, when you get that much force.
That is crazy.
With that complete bifurcation, the guys got exactly what they came for and what you wanted. Except there seems to be something missing.
Sled. But where is the plow?
The rockets went so much faster than I expected. It was just shoot. And the car, we couldn't even see it was split in two until we walked up here because there was just so much dirt in the air. We got up here, half a blue car, half a yellow car. Still can't find the wedge.
That's because it's in 1,000 tiny pieces. After cutting a slice through the car, the solid steel Super Plow disintegrated on impact with the concrete barrier.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I mean, we do a lot of explosions on the show. We do a lot of car crashes, but I have never seen a rocket-powered Super Plow cut a car in half.
Wow.
So now you can fully realize how ridiculous this claim is. that he was speared by a pole traveling at that kind of speed. And for the poles to just fall over right next to their base, it's completely ludicrous, and it defies all physics.
Well, I've been in car accidents where, my girlfriend back in college accidentally rear-ended a guy, and she wasn't going anywhere close to 500 miles an hour. And I mean, there was a jolt when that happened. Now, in this particular case, it's not like a javelin, but it's going at that same speed. And we can intuitively know when we're speeding or you're just going 75 miles an hour, at the top of the speed limit that we can. Now, that's still pretty fast. And some kind of arrow coming at you, if it goes through your windshield, I mean, that's going to do some kind of damage if it came to you at that speed. Go ahead, Craig.
Well, I was just going to add, I think this video is great for addressing the lack of damage to the cab. But as Adam suggested, it is also very important for showing how ridiculous it is to the notion that this plane would have not only hit one light pole without the wings being damaged, but to hit 5 of them at 530 miles per hour, to not have them all, 4 out of the 5 just essentially tip over and land near their base. The only one, coincidentally, the only one that goes any distance is the one that's supposed to have hit the cab. And what happens after Lloyd wrestles for control of his cab and comes to a stop? The pole's right back beside its base again. So, the idea that you would, where would all this kinetic energy go? Would be my question. You've got the impact. Either the plane, the pole's going to slice the wing off, or if somehow the wing is sturdy enough that wouldn't happen, then the pole's going to be knocked a great distance. Like one or the other has to happen.
If you notice, the car was not only cut in half, but it was sent flying like 50 yards, both halves.
Yeah.
Like 50 yards in opposite directions. So for the pole to fall over just a couple feet away from its base. It
is ludicrous. Now, I want to get us to the last little section here. And this is here we have to give a tip of the hat to our colleague who worked with Adam and I when we presented on the Pentagon at Richard Gage's conference in 2022. We were joined by Xander Arena, and he's a researcher who's done great work, and not only on 9/11 topics, but in this case, he's done he did a full study of the image that appears in the Pentagon video that is purported to be Flight 77. And he was able to show that the image in this video is not big enough to be a 757. And we're going to show you
real quick, Craig, for people that don't know this. This was released by the government, and it purportedly shows the plane coming in on the official flight path and striking the Pentagon. And it's really nothing more than 5 frames of a security camera video. And so Xander did an analysis of that video, and Craig can tell you about that. But that's what we're talking about here, is those officially released 5 frames of video. Go ahead, Craig. Sorry.
Yeah, I believe that initially it was 5 frames, and then later on they released a longer stretch. I'm pretty sure that's what we see that kind of picked apart in Massimo Mazzucco's film. Anyway, so here you see, this is from one of the 2. There's one camera in that concrete abutment, the one on the, I believe the one on the right, where the sunlight's hitting it, and there's one in the little cabin where the people go in to park their cars, which is the one we're seeing it here. So right above that concrete thing, you see a little thing sticking up that is purported to be the tail section of the plane. And I zoom in on it a little bit here. So there, and you can see what is supposed to be smoke coming out of the back of the plane, although no witnesses ever reported seeing this smoke. And to me, it looks fake. I don't know, but I don't know. That's not what smoke looks like that I've ever seen. But anyway, so you see the tail section allegedly sticking up from this concrete thing, but the rest of the plane appears to be blocked from view. And we zoom in a little bit more here, and we see it again. Now, Xander came up with this, and he has a detailed presentation. And no one since, to my knowledge, since that was done, no one has successfully rebutted his work. So this is what we should have seen in that video had there been an actual 757 on that flight path. We would have seen the front of the plane sticking out. So the image in there, which I think is fake anyway, but nevertheless, you don't even have to worry about that because we can tell, and he has demonstrated that it's not 150. I believe it's 155 feet is the length of a 757. So that's
what Xander did was he used his brilliant mind and mathematics to carefully and systematically prove that the object that is seen in those officially released images is not big enough to be a 757. And he proved it beyond question, without doubt, using math, and no one has been able to rebut what he said.
Yeah.
So that is another death nail in the official story as well.
Yeah.
Well, is this the only camera at the Pentagon?
Well, there were two. Yeah, there were two that were almost from the same angle, like the one from the parking cabin, and then in front of it, that concrete thing. There were obviously many other cameras, obviously.
Well, that's what I want to know. Why am I squinting at 5 frames here, trying to get an idea of what this thing looks like? I remember when this came out. This was like, I don't know, maybe 2006, and this was after the 9/11 Truth Movement was already asking these questions. And I remember Glenn Beck saying, "Oh, that looks like a nude Michael Moore heading to the buffet." And I remember this because they announced that we're gonna, the Pentagon has released clear footage of a plane hitting a Pentagon. And I was just getting into 9/11 Truth, so I really wanted to see this. And then they're showing this to me, and he's saying it clearly shows something. And I'm like, I see nothing. I see an explosion at the end, but why am I squinting at 5 frames 24 years later when there were several cameras at the scene, right? You were just saying that.
Question, Andy. Why are any of us having to squint at grainy, crappy security camera footage when there's cameras lining the whole wall all along the Pentagon? There's along the perimeter of the Pentagon. There was a freeway overpass which had a camera, and the cameras all around this area could have shown us clearly what actually happened, but they're all kept secret. And the excuse, which is maddening to me, which really makes me angry, is for them to claim national security is the reason that we have to keep these videos secret. Are you kidding me? What sort of national security could be compromised by showing an external view of something coming towards the Pentagon? You can't come up with any realistic answer for that.
No. Yeah, they pull the same thing with the World Trade Center and NIST's data and all that, which is another whole subject. But we can't release the data because
people should not accept that as an answer. National security. Demonstrate to me how national security is compromised by showing what actually happened at the Pentagon.
Well, I've had some people who, the people in the truth movement who spend a lot of time trying to argue that the official story is correct on this, will say that, well, we don't need to see that. All we have to do is analyze these 5 frames. Well, yeah, but I want to see it. Now, the government might say, oh, you're not going to see anything. It's just going to show birds and grass or whatever. I don't believe that. But then show me the video. I want to see birds and grass. Satisfy me. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody in America is, rubbing their hands together, wanting to get their hands on this footage, but there's enough of them who may want to see this and have their curiosity satisfied. What harm could it do 24 years after this event took place? What are you worried that terrorists are going to find out how to ram a plane into the building? Well, I mean, you already failed at that, right? I mean, it's not that brilliant of a plot if that's what happened. So release the videos. I think that's a pretty unifying statement.
Keep it all hidden. The only reason, the only legitimate reason to keep the video secret is if, as Craig and I contend, it doesn't show Flight 77 hitting the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So, the demeanor, just the demeanor of hiding all those videos and keeping all the evidence secret and not finding parts with serial numbers on them that could be directly linked with Flight 77 and all these different anomalies. The only reason any of that makes sense is if they are lying.
Yeah.
Well, maybe an employee took an extra cigarette break or something they shouldn't. They don't want that being known. They get captured on video.
It's worth mentioning that, it's worth mentioning that there have been FOIA requests to get this video. There have been a variety of different ones, and some of them are still pending, I believe. But I think we've had responses in years past where the government has simply said, these are the only two camera views that show the plane. So the thing is, obviously, we don't believe. Well, I mean, we believe it in the sense that the plane didn't do what they said it did. It flew, it flew elsewhere, over, beside, whatever. It didn't hit the building. But it does seem that there was a plane that approached, because a lot of people certainly, described it and describes, the pathway and the path in the way that we've mentioned. So they're not going to show us the video because the video doesn't show it doesn't support the official story. So, a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to think, well, there it is. It's a little blurry, but there it is. It's only a small vocal group like us that's going to not accept that. Unfortunately, people are pretty gullible.
The head, this gets into the operations and, security logistics and such, but the head of the U.S. government's military, the center base right here, they don't anticipate that some projectile might be headed at the building at some point and have their cameras aimed in such a way to capture this, plane.
It just so happens, Andy, there was an exercise going on that day simulating this exact scenario, if you can believe it.
Well, there's a lot of very reasonable questions here. And, it seems that, obviously, when you're dealing with the normies out there, you ask very reasonable questions about this critical event in our history. You get a lot of very irrational answers, but even happens within the 9/11 truth movement. Now, you don't have to embrace every single piece of evidence that gets brought here today to say, well, why are the police officers saying there's a completely different flight path? It's kind of an important detail when you're trying to reconstruct what's happening. Why don't they just release the video so that people don't talk about this anymore? If it clearly shows a plane, then they'll say that. We got problems with AI existing now and all that, but But, these are very reasonable questions. No one should be getting upset for simply asking them or addressing them on a forum like this. Now, why would they need to hit the Pentagon, though? Why would they need to hit the Pentagon? The Twin Towers was spectacular enough. Scary enough to put that image in people's minds and make them realize, why does the government have to go through with the Pentagon?
I can answer that, Andy. The Pentagon made it war. That's what made it war. When they hit the headquarters of our military, then we have to have a war. Okay. Before that, it's an investigation into an attack. Now, once they hit the Pentagon, now it's war.
It's an act of war, yeah.
So it's kind of important.
The demeanor of of the government tells you everything that you need to know. And this is true regarding the Twin Towers, Building 7, the Pentagon, and Shanksville. You know, their demeanor tells you everything. They don't have the demeanor of someone legitimately trying to find answers and investigate this properly. They have the demeanor of somebody trying to cover up something that they don't want people to know.
Well, we've spent a lot of years at AE 9/11 Truth focusing in on the Twin Towers, and we've seen all of these efforts to obfuscate, to just ignore our evidence, and we've basically proven, in the case of Building 7 and the Twin Towers, that these buildings were brought down with explosives. So obviously there was plotting and planning, and they couldn't have gotten explosives into the buildings in just a morning, right? You know, they had to be planning for probably at least 8 months up before the 9/11 came, you know. But the notion that they might have done things at the other sites as well of 9/11, that's just mind-blowing, you know. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but you know, if you're going to go as far as saying they put explosives in the Twin Towers, then setting up something at the Pentagon isn't out of line to suggest. No. Then you got to look at the evidence and say, does the evidence suggest, you know, what Craig and Adam are saying? And we're going to leave that to the audience to decide for themselves. But if you're going to go as far as to say they brought down 3 buildings and controlled demolitions in New York that day, you know, but the rest of the official story, that's all hunky-dory. That's all perfect. All the efforts were focused on New York. They did nothing in D.C. or Pennsylvania. Well, that's a little ridiculous. Of course, you got to look at the other things as well. And I haven't spent a lot of time looking at those things, but these are very reasonable questions that you guys are bringing up. And I don't think that it's evil to talk about it. And I think we might do a little bit more of that here on this show and in other capacities as well, because it's 9/11 truth, and 9/11 didn't just happen in New York City. We are at an hour and a half, a little over that with this show, guys, and I want to make sure that it's nice and condensed, and anybody that's been on the edge of their seats for the past 90 minutes, I want them to get a bathroom break. So we may revisit this again in the future. Guys, thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing, standing by this for so long, continuing to raise these questions, and of course, for coming on 9/11 Free Fall today.
And thanks for having the courage, Andy, to put this stuff on the podcast. That takes a certain amount of backbone just in itself.
Yeah, Andy, I see the work on the Pentagon going hand in hand with all the work on New York City and the Twin Towers and the demolitions. It's mutually supportive, you know, because we're seeing the same modus operandi on all 3 crime scenes. You know, we're seeing a massive cover up afterwards, and we can get into more about the Pentagon later, but you know,
that's like an overview we've given you, I guess. Well,
I'll tell you what, maybe we just will. All right, folks, you have a good night.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Andy.
Hit that notification bell and slam the like button and subscribe. Thanks.